It's inhuman. It's ghastly. It's the St. Canard Files, the Darkwing Duck podcast. We're your hosts, Mike Russo and
Stan Lunn.
Happy New Year, Stan.
Happy New Year, Mike. And to
how's-
all our listeners, a Happy New Year as well.
Yep, I hope everybody had a good New Year's. I know this is dropping a week later, but while we're recording this, it is New Year's Day. What have you been up to the last couple of days, Stan?
Not too much. Trying to catch up on a bunch of YouTube I missed while I was at my mom's for Christmas.
Okay. We de-Christmased today. We de-Christmased hard. Usually it's a process of like taking this down, then taking this down, then getting to the tree. Like today it was like, nope, it's all going down. Every single thing. It does not look like Christmas in this house anymore. The holidays are over. But you know it's not over is Super Ducktales.
Yep.
So we are back with part 3. What is the name of this episode, Stan?
Full Metal Duck.
That is a reference to something.
That it is. It's a reference to Full Metal Jacket.
And how many kids would have got that? Probably less now than back then.
Yeah, and even back then, I think it'd maybe be 5%, if that.
I didn't know it. Okay, so this is the middle. We're right in the middle of our story. And of course, we discussed when this first aired. It aired in TV movie form Easter Sunday, March 26, 1989. Aired as a separate episode several months later. Don't remember when. Written by Ken Kuntz and David Weimers. Animated at Wang. And yeah, that's all we need to know because this is just another episode in our story arc. This one has less story. It's kind of a bit more laid back. A few major things happen, but it's basically Fenton getting used to being Gizmoduck.
Yep.
But last week we ended on a pretty big cliffhanger, which was
did.
what? What was our cliffhanger for those who don't remember?
The Gizmoduck has to take out the GIC U2.
Yep, we did not mention what the GIC U2 was a spoof of in terms of character design. Did we?
I'm not sure if we did, but just in case, we should probably mention it.
So what is he based on?
He's based on Ed 209, I believe is the name. It's a police enforcement robot from the RoboCop movies.
Which, those had a bigger pop culture footprint in 1989 than they do now, obviously.
Yeah.
There were action figure lines for RoboCop, even though that was not a movie I'd show to a kid.
And a cartoon series, right?
I'm pretty sure it was. Again, not a movie I'd show to a kid. But it would have been fresh in the cultural zeitgeist in 1989. So that tracks as far as what it's based on. What we didn't mention last week is the GIC U2's catchphrase. It's always going, hurt, maim, destroy. He says it over and over again. And like we said, that's Hal Smith. I really listened to the voice this week. That's definitely Hal Smith. Because it sounds like it sounds like an angry robotic gyro. That's absolutely Smith.
And it does make some sense. I mean, Gyro built the thing. It makes sense it would speak in a robotic version of his voice.
It does make sense. Yeah, absolutely. So now we have Gizmoduck versus the GIC U2.
That we do, but before we get into the episode, should we take a moment to mention what happened this week?
Yeah, I guess we should, and it's going to be relevant for the episode, and if you've seen it, you'll know why. What happened this week, Stan?
Well, the world lost Webra Walters.
Yeah. Yeah, very famous. Webra Walters went, and I don't really have an opinion on the woman one way or another. I used to watch her as a kid because, I only had a few channels, and she was on every Friday night after TGIF. So I knew who she was, but it's kind of funny, coincidentally, that Webra Walters, the parody character that is based on Webra Walters, is in this episode.
Yeah. Now, was that's Webra's first appearance, or no?
No, she goes all the way back. She first appeared in Send in the Clones, which is the first DuckTales episode to air on weekday afternoons. So she goes really far back. She didn't appear in DuckTales too much, but she's here. She did appear a couple of times on Darkwing Duck, and she also appeared in a 2017 DuckTales episode too.
Yep.
So she actually ends up getting around as a character.
Yeah.
But we will mention her when we get to her. She shows up in the third act, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
So we've got Gizmoduck versus the GIC U2. Walk us through this, Stan.
All right. So we're starting at the money bin that looks like a demilitarized war zone. And Fenton's, or I should say Gizmoduck, is telling the GIC U2 that he's going to be forced to use weapons that even the Pentagon is afraid of.
And I like when GIC U2 goes, I see you. And then Gizmoduck goes, well, I see you too, GIC U2. Yeah, so he does make that mention of the Pentagon. But what does he realize?
That he no longer has his instruction book.
I hope you don't mind meeting here after lunch. So yeah, Gizmoduck gets thrashed.
Yeah.
And he makes a comment. Is this where he says, have you ever considered putting this dime in a loafer instead?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's, it's a riff on penny loafers, obviously. But I don't know how many kids now know what a penny loafer even is. But that's
honestly,
what that...
I didn't even get the
reference. I think I just know too much pop culture through cartoons. That's how I know this stuff. So Gizmoduck has to improvise. And so there's a scene here where he presses a couple of buttons and a little mega horn comes out. And then the GIC U2 brings out this huge speaker, which blasts him at such volume and actually kind of shorts him out a bit. That scene was not in the TV movie version. He goes from saying the Pentagon to GIC U2 becoming a wrecking ball. So that whole bit was cut, which was a shame because it's like one scene where the GIC U2 like super just unloads on Gizmoduck, like all his weaponry, and you get an idea of just how durable this armor actually is because he's left completely unscathed by it.
Yeah, after 2,364 projectiles.
But it's just the explosion animation is really well done here. Like, this is a great sequence.
Yeah, definitely is.
My favorite bit in this fight is the damsel in distress button, which is burned in my brain because this entire, 15 seconds was in the preview of the TV movie on NBC. When they previewed this, like when I got my first look at Gizmoduck, it was through this scene. So this whole bit was burned in my brain. So the damsel in distress button puts a wig and a pair of googly eyes on his face. And he's like, you wouldn't dare hit a lady, would you? And the wrecking ball smashes him. He gets up and he has an additional little thing with glasses that goes over the face. He goes, all right. And a fake nose. He goes, all right. How about a lady wearing glasses? Bam, again. And then he's like, how about her? Bam, one more time. So he's getting he's getting thrashed by this robot.
Yeah.
So, and then he says to Scrooge, I don't suppose I have some vacation time coming. And Scrooge goes,
not on my payroll, you don't.
No, on my payroll. Yep. Okay, so how you can tell us, Stan, how does Gizmoduck defeat this guy?
So he presses all of his buttons, which inflates him up like a balloon. He's then hit with the wrecking ball, which rockets him around, where he then comes back down and collides with the wrecking ball GIC U2, destroying it.
Yes, and he turns into a pipe organ.
A pipe organ? I thought it was like one of them carnival rides.
It's kind of both. It's got calliope music kind of. Yeah, maybe it is. Either way, he's destroyed the thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, pushing all his buttons is a devastating, a devastating attack, one he does not like. There is a later episode where he can't put the suit on because everyone would see, and Mama Crackshell's wearing it, and she doesn't know how to use it, and this giant robot praying mantis. The episode is called The Duck Who Knew Too Much. And the robot praying mantis has got Mama Crackshell by the tire, and she's like, Fenton, what do I do? Put the suit on. He goes, I can't. Push all your buttons. And Mama Crackshell goes, I don't want to. You always told me that hurts. And then
It
Fenton
does
goes,
come in useful, though.
he goes, but isn't motherhood about suffering? And then she presses the buttons, and the same thing happens, and she blows up the mantis robot. We're not going to talk about that episode, but yeah, this does come back, and in this story too, the pushing all the buttons things does come back. So yeah, Scrooge is really impressed, and he gives Gizmoduck the job.
Yeah. And Gizmoduck celebrates this with flags and fireworks.
Do, 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 do. And then Scrooge asks how to get a hold of him. And did you take down what Gizmoduck's phone number is?
You know I did.
Of course.
Yep. He tells him to dial 555 GZMO.
This phony elbow is more phone than elbow. Yeah. So he leaves. He's laughing. I'm a metal somebody. And Scrooge is like, don't I know that voice? Scrooge never actually figures it out, though.
Not in this episode.
No, not in this one, at least. So Fenton comes home still wearing the suit. And Ma Crackshell is still watching her soap operas.
Did you notice the person on TV resembles somebody else we know
she
from
looks
a
lot
show?
like she looks a lot like Morgana. But this is actually a woman who is actually a stock character from other DuckTales episodes. She was the episode Curse of Castle McDuck. She was like a movie star who was staying at the castle. And no, it was Hotel Strange Duck. Sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say I've seen Curse of Castle McDuck.
No, this is Hotel Strange Duck. She's like the Duchess, and they just used the character design as this soap opera woman. So yeah, but the hair looks a lot like Morgana. You're right.
Yeah. Not the only pseudo Darkwing reference in this scene either.
What? Yes. So Gizmoduck comes in, and he's like, Mama, look what I'm wearing. And she's like, did you join a heavy metal band? But she doesn't care because, it's his mother. She doesn't care. But what's that other Darkwing Duck reference that comes up?
So Gizmoduck produces a vacuum cleaner out of himself and proceeds to vacuum up a bunch of Quackerjacks.
Ah, there is the name a couple of years beforehand, huh?
Yep.
I mean, we all know what Quackerjacks are. Obviously, it's just a duck pun. But that name has a bigger significance, doesn't it?
Yep.
So she's impressed by that. And again, you're good at this, Stan. Did you take down all the things he shows off?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So there's a Mop-O-Matic, a digital zucchini slicer, a turbocharged beet
flosser.
Okay.
That would hurt.
Yeah. A Country Twanging Toast Timer. 9 o'clock, your toast
is burned. Come and tie ya, yippee yippee that part is so burned into my brain.
Yeah.
So Fenton decides to go to bed, but discovers he can't get the suit off.
Nope.
Damn thing just won't come off.
Nope. Crowbar doesn't work. Mama's makeup remover doesn't work. That's a scary thought. Her makeup remover is a jackhammer. What kind of makeup is that strong?
She doesn't even wear makeup. Did you catch the frame picture in Fenton's bedroom of his mother, like full face in the frame, looking angry? That isn't a face I want to. That's not a face I want to wake up to.
No.
So the suit doesn't come loose, but her false teeth did.
Yep.
Ducks with teeth are really creepy, especially when they're false teeth. So she decides to just kick him out of the trailer.
Yep, he's got to sleep in the carport tonight.
And there was a scene, a bit of dialogue, that was added to the TV movie version where she says, I don't want tire marks on my sheets. maybe that was meant to make it seem a little bit less mean. Like maybe she has a reason for doing it. I don't know. But yeah, his first night as Gizmoduck wasn't a very nice one, is it?
Now, also, might I say, they have really good lighting at that trailer, because at first I thought it was an error that it was, drawn as daytime, though it's supposed to be night, but then I realized it's just really well lit.
So the next day, Gizmoduck is doing his, guard the bin, and the nephews show up. Yeah, they don't get a lot of screen time yet, but they're here. They want to be the presidents of the Gizmoduck fan club.
Well, luckily for them, Gizmoduck put all of his weapons away.
He apologizes for waking up on the wrong side of the Buick this morning.
Yeah. Did you catch all the array of weapons he pulled out?
There's some deadly weapons, but I know there's like a pie, I don't know if the skunk is in this scene, but I know I saw a lobster.
A crab and a skunk are there.
Okay.
A baseball and a baseball bat. A turkey baster with a dart. I'm not sure how that works. There's a slingshot, bow and arrow, rocket launcher, a gun. That wouldn't fly nowadays. And what I'm calling a wallet bag. One of those like weird floppy things that you whack people with. I don't know the technical term.
No, I have no idea what that's called either. Yeah, you only see it for like a second or two, but it was just long enough to catch a bunch of funny stuff there. So yeah, he agrees. He signs their autographs. He signs their pictures of him too. He's like, he goes, "I'm a fan of anyone."
I was just gonna say, I'm sure he signs Gizmoduck and not Fenton.
I sure hope so. He goes, "I'm a fan of anyone who's a fan of mine," and he offers to take them home. That scene of him driving down the street with them sitting on his shoulders, that was in the theme song.
Yep.
Really cool, like a little bit of animation of the three of them on his shoulders. It's cool. A DuckTales character makes a cameo here for the only time since the first season. We are never going to see this guy again if we're watching DuckTales in chronological order. Who do we see? We see
Doofus Drake.
And of course, this is old DuckTales, so it isn't the creepy Gamimama-loving DuckTales Doofus that we're familiar with from that show, who was really creepy.
Thank God.
This is just a fat little woodchuck with an obsession with Launchpad. But yeah, he has no dialogue, so they didn't have to pay Brian Cummings anything. His one little scene is he jumps on the edge of a teeter-totter, and the kid on the other side is thrown into a tree. And one of the nephews goes, "Super Buns did it again." So Gizmoduck saves the kid and tells him next time he goes in the teeter-totter, make sure to wear his seatbelt. And the kid goes,
I love how the kid looks at it and is like, "What seatbelt?"
Yeah, this scene was not in the TV movie version, so I was not familiar with it for a long time before I saw it. And I was like, "Oh yeah, there's Doofus." But you don't ever see him on the show again. He gets completely written out. So Gizmoduck drops the kids off at the mansion, and he says, what's he say? Brush your teeth between meals, don't sass your elders, and never wear your jammies in a bubble bath.
Yep. He also uses what I believe is the first utterance of the line Gizmo Buddies.
That's going to become a thing. Yeah, he's always going to call the kids Gizmo Buddies. So the kids love Gizmoduck, but who doesn't love him?
The Beagles.
Yeah, they're really mad, and we go into their hideout, and this is the only time in the whole series we see all 7 of them together. All 7 Beagle Boys, the main Beagle Boys, are together. So you got Big Time, Baggy, Bouncer, and Burger, but you also got Bank Job, Babyface, and Bugle. They're hatching a plan to beat Gizmoduck.
Yep.
I wonder what that plan's going to be.
Well, we won't find out quite yet.
No, because Fenton comes home with the good news that he has his own fan club, and he's really excited. And Mama Crackshell's watching lottery, and she's aggravated at him. She wants him to get out of the way. But what happens when she relents and shuts off the TV with the remote control?
It makes the Gizmo suit disassemble from Fenton.
Not just disassemble into the pieces that originally, it explodes into like a million pieces.
Yeah.
And his butt ends up stuck in the tire. And he's excited until the phone rings. And at first he picks up the house phone, and it turns out it's his elbow phone. So he has to get into character pretty quick. And who is it on the other line?
Scrooge.
What does he tell him?
He wants him to meet him at the statue of Duckburg because the Beagle Boys are causing trouble once again.
And Fenton goes, Beagle Boys, not them again. And then we go to a commercial break as he's frantically trying to put pieces of the suit back on. Very fruitlessly. It's not going to go on that way. Right. After the commercial break, we are in Duckburg Harbor, where I did not know that Duckworth had a boat license. But he is using Scrooge's little boat to drive Scrooge and Beakley's with them to the statue of Duckburg, where they meet up with the chief of police. So what's going on at the statue of Duckburg?
The Beagles are barricaded inside with hostages, which include the nephews.
Right, they were there for a visit, Beakley says.
And they tell him to give him the money bin or it's going to get ugly.
How ugly?
Torture by bagpipes.
I didn't know Burger could play the bagpipes.
Neither did I.
And everybody's like horrified, except Scrooge, who loves bagpipe music. He recognizes the tune.
What was the tune, Mike?
My Filly of the Firthel Forth or something like that. Did I say it correctly?
Okay, I hope so. I only was able to figure out the My Filly of the part. I couldn't quite understand. And unfortunately, the subtitles for Disney Plus are absolutely useless.
Well, he says, I know that Bonnie tune anywhere. So yeah, Gizmoduck has to get there, but he's kind of stuck. So he's trying to, so what happens next?
Well, they start trying different channels. They try Channel 5, which is playing.
It's playing Gilligander's Island. It's playing on like the TV in the chest of the costume. So yeah, Gilligander's Island. I guess it's the first dry run for what we're gonna know as Pelican's Island.
Yeah.
It would have been really funny if they had called it Pelican's Island even then. But no, Gilligander's Island. He flips through a few more channels, and I don't know if they had to license this unless the movie's in public domain. Did you hear what's playing on the TV?
Well, Channel 7 sounded like it was some baseball game.
Right, but the next channel is something super specific.
Oh, well, I didn't recognize it. I just wrote that it's some drama.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh.
Yeah, the actual movie, It's a Wonderful Life. He's like, don't you hear it, Mary? It's great. I'm going to jail. That's from the end of the movie. So I don't know if they had to license it or. Yeah, it's I haven't seen it in years, but you should at least watch it once to say you have. I mean, unless you don't want to, I can't force you. But anyway, yeah. So and then the one after that, it sounds like some sort of news broadcast, right?
I think so. And after that, they're desperate, so they try PBS.
We do cut back to the statue of Duckburg, where a woman tries to commit suicide by jumping. She's like, I'd rather jump.
You skipped a little bit there.
What part did I skip?
Well, trying doodads on the suit.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I did skip that. Yeah, well, yeah. I'm only human. So they were trying to doodads and doohickeys on the suit, she says. The first one they try blows a hole in the ceiling, and it was good imitation paneling. Mob Crackshell isn't happy. And the next one does what?
The next one is a finger gun that blows up the TV, which is too bad because it's almost time for the Ducks of Hazzard.
Blather and blather, Skite, she says. And then the suit jumps on her, and she goes, I'm not sleeping in the carport. Yep. And that's when we cut back to the statue and a woman tries to jump. She's like, I'd rather jump. And they pull her back in.
Yeah.
And Scrooge is like, where is Gizmo? And it's funny when Scrooge first gets there. Oh, no, that happens later. I'm sorry. Forget that. And so Fenton's like, it must have been something you said. Some sort of secret word. So he hits the remote. The suit pops off Crackshell. And he's going through everything she said. He's like, ducks of hazard. Now look what you done. And then what does he say?
Blathering blatherskite.
And then it jumps all over him. And she's like, how could a stupid word like blather? And he's like, don't say it. And he's still having trouble with reverse, as Launchpad would with the Ratcatcher, funny enough, because he drives backward through a wall once again.
Yep.
Then he shows up at the statue of Duckburg, and Scrooge goes, Gizmoduck's here. And the chief of police goes, who?
Yeah.
He hasn't made a name for himself just yet. So what is Gizmoduck's plot to stop the Beagle Boys?
Well, his plan to stop the bagpipe-blowing Beagle bamboozlers...
Save the adjectives for later, Gizmoduck.
...consists of 2 giant scoops of ice cream and chocolate topping.
Boy, I wonder who that's supposed to aim at. Yeah, so Burger notices it and is so excited he jumps right through the glass window.
Yeah, they dump the ice cream and toppings on the statue's torch, by the way.
The music in this scene is really great. I love the music here. Very heroic.
Yeah. Dialogue's pretty good, too. Don't fall for those dips, you dip!
Yeah, so Burger, climbs up the arm of the statue trying to get to the ice cream. Baggy and Big Time try to stop him, but they slip on the ice cream, and they fall off the statue all the way to the ground. What breaks their fall?
A water fountain.
Yeah, and the water comes out of their mouths and ears. Cute little visual. That fall should have killed them, but whatever.
It's cartoon physics.
Yeah. So Gizmoduck becomes the big hero in Duckburg. I almost said St. Canard. He becomes a big hero in town.
He'll be a big hero there, too.
Eventually, yeah. The mayor gives him a Super Sleuth Award, which magnetically sticks to his chest.
It's a Duckburg Stainless Steel Super Sleuth Award.
Yes, and all the women of Duckburg, they want Gizmoduck. But who does he only have eyes for?
Gandra D is the one for me.
She drives by in her pink convertible, but he's too swarmed by everybody else to really get over to her. So he's kind of upset by that. But, one day maybe. And we also see a quick scene of the nephews passing out memberships to the Gizmoduck fan club.
He's there signing autographs.
A brief little bit that was not in the TV movie version. I never actually saw that until later. So what happens next?
Well, next we go back to Ma Beagle's house, who's watching a thing about some robbers being stopped by Gizmoduck.
Mm-hmm.
And she's all upset because she's got to, get a bunch of ingredients to make, pies to get all of her sons out of jail again.
Yep. And when she picks up the shopping bags off the back seat,
she finds the Gizmoduck instruction book.
How to be a Gizmoduck in 6 easy lessons, it says. And she goes, this is a recipe book. Yep. Go for it.
This is a recipe book I can get behind.
Yes, and it ends we had commercial break ends with her laughing. June Foray just kicks all sorts of ass in this episode. In these episodes. She's great. Really great. Okay, so after commercial break, we meet a new Beagle Boy. If you were curious if this guy ever showed up before, he's only in this episode and the next part. He was created just for this. Who is this new Beagle Boy?
Megabyte Beagle.
Yeah, so Megabyte Beagle wears a mortarboard on his head. He has a polka dotted bow tie. I believe he has suspenders.
I'm not sure.
But he does have a big pair of glasses too. So he's he's drawn like a stereotypical nerd with the basic Beagle Boy outfit too. His prison numbers are a complicated math equation.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Well, it's not the usual 176s. It's it probably is just random, but it's got math symbols all over it. So what did Ma send her smartest son?
So the pie that she sent him is lemon meringue with wire cutters and a tuning fork.
Yup. And luckily his cellmate has braces. So
Yep.
he's going to tie the PA system to the tuning fork and strike it on his. Yeah, he's going to strike it on his braces.
Yep.
Which what does that do?
It's going to create a frequency to open the cell doors. But this also starts a recurring joke. Say it in Beagle talk.
Yes, he goes through this very long explanation that confuses his cellmate, who goes, say it in Beagle talk. And then Megabyte goes,
breaking out of here.
And that's when you can tell that's Frank Welker, because when he talks like that, he sounds just like Big Time. Yeah, so we both noticed that one of the prisoners in the jail, if you know your DuckTales episodes, it's Mad Dog McGurk. He was Scrooge's cellmate from the Duckman of Alcatraz. In that episode, they broke out of jail together, and I believe he went straight. I guess that did not last. Because here he is back in jail. Obviously, just reuse the character model because, we need prisoners for jail. There's this guy. Let's put him in. But if you know your DuckTales episodes, you recognize him right away. Yep. So a huge prison breakout, and Megabyte goes back to the cabin, and Ma Beagle asks him, can you do it? And what does he tell her?
Well, he goes into a bunch of jargon again, which I didn't actually write down, but thankfully we get it in Beagle talk. We got it made in the shade.
Yeah, their plan is to hijack Gizmoduck's controls. Yeah, I love that. We got it made in the shade. So this next scene was another one of those.
One more thing from the previous scene before we move on, though. I love Ma Beagle's line. College was worth every dollar I stole.
Yep. So the next scene was not in the TV movie version. It's the second most significant cut from that version of it. In the end, it's really kind of padding, but I think it's significant because this scene is really Fenton's last moment of freedom in this story before everything goes to hell for him.
Yeah.
And I think it's significant that he wakes up and he has a moment with his mother. She's like, I never spend time with you anymore. He's like, you never wanted to spend time with me before. She's like, you never had a TV in your chest before. Because, their TV is still busted and she's been watching the TV on the suit. And
what is she watching on the suit?
What is she watching on the suit? She mentions it, but I don't remember what it was.
Let's Make a Squeal.
So that Let's Make a Deal, and that game show keeps coming back. It never quite goes away. And yeah, he puts the suit on. He's wearing one-piece PJs. His red onesie, his red thermals, basically. Which for somehow he's not wearing that when the suit finally does come off from two episodes from now. But that's really nitpicky. But once the armor goes on, he makes this big deal about how important he is. Again, in about a half an hour, his whole life is going to crap. And it's significant. It's like he's at the top of his game right now. He is on a high. Right now, Fenton's riding a high. Everything's going right for him. And you have to build somebody really far up before you knock them down. And I think this scene illustrates just how confident Fenton is at the moment. And it's a good scene to have in the episode. It's the last time he's going to see his mother too for a while. But as he goes to leave the trailer, what happens?
His batteries die.
Because
I guess Mama shouldn't have watched the late show on the Gizmoduck TV last night.
But she comes to his rescue by doing what?
She hooks the Gizmo suit to a car battery and jump starts it.
It's good animation here. You actually see Fenton's skeleton inside the suit.
And funnily enough, this is not the last time this will happen to Gizmoduck, because this does eventually get done again in a Disney Adventures Darkwing Duck comic called What's the Problem?
Oh, they charge him with a car battery in that too?
Yep.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So he says goodbye to her, and he leaves to get ready for an interview with who?
With Webra Walters.
And of course, Scrooge is there too.
Yep.
And of course, watching this interview at their cabin is Ma Beagle and Megabyte, and they have created a Gizmoduck remote control, which looks a lot like an NES Advantage. Very much like an old school NES joystick. I never had one of those, but it's definitely that's what it looks like. It's modeled after. So first he shows off one of his weapons, and Webra Walters is very impressed by it. Ooh, very impressive. And that was her shtick. She did the all Elmer Fudd thing with her R's. But then Megabyte starts to screw with his controls. This isn't going well. What happened, Stan?
Well, first, instead of using the boomerang bazooka, he uses what appears to be some sort of sprinkler system instead.
And soaks Scrooge and Webra.
Yep. Then he almost uses a flamethrower on him. Thankfully, they skedaddle out of the chairs before he fries them to a crisp.
And Megabyte says, watch me give that hotshot a hot seat. And Scrooge is like, it's just a wee joke. After all, he is the toast of Duckburg. He's trying so hard to save face. Yeah. And then Gizmoduck comes into frame with his propeller spinning like crazy. And Scrooge is like, where are you going? And Gizmoduck is like, wish I knew, sir. Bye-bye. And he flies away.
Yeah.
And Webra Walters quits.
Yeah, though she'll be back.
She does come back. I think she comes back in a later DuckTales episode. And if she doesn't, she shows up in a couple of Darkwings. She actually shows up in Up and Awry, where she does interview Gizmoduck again. And then she shows up in Quiverwing Quack, where she interviews Goslin. So, yeah, she pops up. She's not totally gone.
Was there a third Darkwing episode she was in?
She might be, but those are the only two that come to mind. There could be one where she's just, on the TV they're watching. But I think I mentioned the two most significant ones. And if anybody wants to go check out the 2017 DuckTales episode she's in, it's one of the very last ones, The Life and Crimes of Scrooge McDuck, in a flashback set in the 80s, where she's interviewing Glomgold. And she's there specifically because that flashback was from the 80s. So they felt that'd be cool to have her there. That's direct from the art book. More reason to buy it, guys.
Also, while we're on Webra, do you want to mention her voice actress? Or
I'm pretty sure that's Joan Gerber.
Yeah.
Who we did not mention yet because she's also Mrs. Beakley, who was there earlier. Yet another DuckTales voice actor, I should say, who's passed away. Another one who passed away pretty early. So Megabyte sends Gizmoduck on a little shopping spree.
Yep.
Tell us about Gizmoduck's crime spree, Stan.
Well, he robs what looks to be like a shoe store, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like to me, too.
And then an ATM, a gumball machine, a burger joint, and then he commits probably the crime that hurts him the most.
Right. Gandra D shows up in her car. Ma Beagle's like, I always wanted the pink thunder duck. Let's borrow it permanently. And yeah, he picks her up out of the car, dumps her on the sidewalk, and lifts the car up over his head. And he's like, Gandra, do you know you've stolen my heart? And what does she say?
Does that give you the right to steal my car?
Yeah. And he's like, I know actions speak louder than words. And then as he's saying this, the Gizmo suit speeds off, but his head stays in the frame. So his neck is stretching. He's like, but it's not me who's doing this to you. I mean, it is, but it isn't. And that's when his head follows the rest of his body. Very Chuck Jones.
Yeah. And for anyone wondering, the Thunder Duck is meant to be a Thunderbird, which is an old type of car.
Yes. That just reminds me of the Futurama episode where they go to buy a Thunder Cougar Falconbird. So he starts filling the cabin with all sorts of things she's having him steal, which includes a merry-go-round.
Yep.
That seems incredibly frivolous. But then finally, Ma Beagle stops, looks around, and realizes, what am I wasting time with this for?
Hold on. There is one other significant theft pulls before that.
Oh, he steals a grand piano.
And some pearls from somebody.
Yes, what's the name of this character?
That
Buffy
is
Parvenu?
Buffy Parvenu.
Yeah, the name is, I believe this character got her start in, what'd you say, it was Bubba Trubba?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a scene in that one where Mrs. Beakley takes Bubba to like a social to like turn him into a gentleman, and that blows up in her face when the Beagle Boys try to kidnap Tootsie, and Bubba like destroys the place, and then Mrs. Beakley gets kicked out of the club, and I believe this is the same character design. So yeah, Gizmoduck steals the piano, robs her pearls, and then after a few more thefts, Ma Beagle realized, what am I wasting the time with loose change? Let's go after the megabucks. We know what she's after, don't we?
Oh yeah.
So we cut to the mansion, where what do we see?
Well, there's a protest against Gizmoduck happening outside.
Save Duckburg! Stop Gizmoduck! And Scrooge is like, he's in his study, he's complaining, Gizmoduck's a monster, who knows what else he can do. And then right after he says that, what happens?
Gizmoduck bursts through the wall.
And Duckworth gets his big moment in this story arc. What does Duckworth do?
He slaps him across the face with his glove, which is, as some people may know, is the old-timey way of challenging someone to a duel.
He goes, "My sentiments exactly, you robotic ruffian." And yeah, he slaps him right across the face. And then, Gizmoduck goes, "Please forgive me, Mr. McDuck." And you see him advance on them. And we fade to the next scene.
There is one line I love from that scene, though. "What are you doing? I'm not sure, but we'll find out, sir."
I love how his voice is changing depending on like how the suit's gyrating. And it's like really well done. He's like, "I don't know, sir, but we'll find out in a minute." He's totally resigned to the fact he's not in control here. So the nephews come home, and they suspect something's up with Gizmoduck. They even say it's like someone else is pushing his buttons or something. They come into the mansion. They find Scrooge and Duckworth tied up, and they untie them. And Scrooge is like, "That good-for-nothing Gizmoduck. Look what he did." And they said, "Well, why did he tie you up?" And Scrooge goes, "He wants something." And then what do we see in the next shot?
We see that Gizmoduck is driving the money bin away, and he's bringing it right to Ma Beagle's.
He goes, "Mama was right. I should have stuck with bean counting." And I love how the shot starts with just him in the tractor, and it slowly pulls back to reveal the money bin, as if we didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And the ending is just great. Mama Beagle's at her doorstep, and she's like, "Come on, money bin.
Mama.
Come to Mama." And great cliffhanger ending. And of course we get our next time on DuckTales thing, that always end with. Okay, so that was part 3, Full Metal Duck. Stan, what would you rate this one?
I would give this one another 4.
Okay.
Once again, great dialogue, great action. The characters are all top notch.
Anything else?
I'm trying to think if there's more I wanted to elaborate on there.
Were you giving it a 4 or a 5?
A 4.
Oh, a 4. Okay. Well, I'm going to give it a 5. This will be my first 5. I'm giving it 5 dimes. So I'm giving it 50 cents. I think everything about this one works. The fight with the GIC U2 is a really great introduction to how powerful Gizmoduck is, whether he has the instruction book or not. All the stuff in the trailer with the suit trying to get it off, then trying to get it on, is really fantastic too. It's nice seeing him at his highest before he gets knocked down a peg. Just a lot of great stuff. I think it's a really great middle part of this story. So yeah, this one gets my first 5. I'm giving it 50 cents.
All right.
So yeah, so next week is...
Hold on. We do have a villain to rate this time.
Yeah, we might as well do a villain. Who are we rating?
The GIC U2.
I love this robot. It's so cool.
It is. I love the design. I love the voice. It has the perfect air of menace to it.
It does. But it still looks kind of goofy.
Yeah.
It's got that DuckTales goofiness to it, but it still is threatening.
So what would you rate him?
I'm going to give him 4 dimes. I'll give him 40 cents because he isn't like top tier, but the design is cool. The voice is cool. He's very powerful. I love that it transforms. And the fight with Gizmoduck is very memorable. What would you give him?
All right. I actually am giving him the same score for pretty much the same reasons you've listed.
Great.
I think that I love the design. I think he's a pretty good threatening villain, but still has that air of goofiness that you do expect from DuckTales.
Yeah.
Not top tier like some villains, but a very memorable villain for sure.
I gotta say, a lot of Gyro's inventions in this series do stand up. A lot of them are really great. Gizmoduck is a big one, but you still have this robot. You have the Millennium Shortcut time machine. You have Armstrong, the Time Tub, the Time Teaser, Armstrong, the giant construction robots, the Golden Condor from the Golden Suns, Little Bulb, obviously. I mean, I could just keep naming Gyro inventions. You got the Flubble Gum from a different Fenton episode. You've got the Multiphonic Duplicator. Did you ever see that episode?
I'm not sure.
He invents a ray gun that multiplies things. So the kids multiply money that multiplies whenever it hears a bell. And all of a sudden, Duckburg is overrun with money. It makes the inflation skyrockets. It's a great episode. And it's the main reason things go out of control is because of Fenton. It's a really funny episode. A lot of the later episodes are really great, especially if Fenton's in them. But okay, so next week we have part 4. Less Gizmoduck, a lot more Beagle Boys. This one is called the Billionaire Beagle Boys Club. Another good one, but we'll tackle that one next week. Stan, any shout outs or plugs before we go?
Once again, I don't believe I have any shout outs I can think of. Plug my 2 YouTube channels again, though, DMC Jedi Man, DMC Jedi Man Gaming. You got any shout outs or plugs, Mike?
No, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year again. Let's hope it's a good one. And yeah. And okay, I guess that's it for tonight. Until next week, guys, when we talk about Billionaire Beagle Boys Club, everybody stay dangerous.
You didn't mention the where they can find us.
I think by now they all know, but if I really have to do it again, every podcast app and YouTube, I think by now, you people who are sticking with us after 3.5 years, I think you guys know the drill by now. But I will keep mentioning it. Thank you for the reminder, but I'm just happy we are everywhere. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, I wish you were on Spotify, or why can't you be on this? We're everywhere, which is good. So until next week, guys, stay dangerous. And if you do need to get in touch with us, call us 555-GZMO. This phony elbow is more phone than elbow.
Stay dangerous, everyone.
Have a good night.